All right. Good morning, Doug. I hear we're going to talk about men's fashion today. Is that right?
Well, look, I can't help but read the paper because I don't want to live completely in a silo, in a bubble. I read the Wall Street Journal, which it seems to me is along with the New York Post, uh, is about the only legitimate paper that's still out there, more or less. Okay. But they've all become pretty bad. And as evidence of that, this Saturday, and I enjoy reading the Saturday Journal because they cover all kinds of space and it's entertaining. It's like reading a pithy magazine, let's say.
Hmm.
Um, they had an article here about men's fashion. Okay, well, that's not something that you normally would have expected in the old days to see in
Yeah.
the Wall Street Journal, men's fashion. Because frankly, most men don't care about fashion. I don't think so. I mean, you know, maybe, one decade men will wear hats and then the next day they won't wear hats. Okay, that kind of stuff happens. Or jeans go from slim jeans to baggy jeans.
Yeah.
Okay,
White
anyway.
t-shirts to black t-shirts, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And I still favor white T-shirts actually because I think of uh, James Dean and Marlon Brando in their movies from the '50s who often used to sport white T-shirts. So they're coming back as being retro, right? But
Yeah.
men's fashion doesn't go anywhere.
Hmm.
It Women's fashion has always been crazy and unwearable and goofy. But anyway, in the Wall Street Journal, uh, they talk about, what was it, 6 major trends or something like that in men's
Yeah.
fashion.
Do you want me to bring up the article or
Let's do that.
okay.
Show it to people.
Well, when I saw this, I'll just say I burst into laughter for better or worse. That's what happened.
Right, and there's a bunch of other pictures that follow after this, but look at that. All of these men, they're all soy boys. They all look like women. They could all pass as women, every
The,
one
the,
of them.
s- the fashion looks like women's wear for sure. I mean, one's carrying it. Two are carrying purses. It looks like.
Yes, that's right. But they're large man purses, so maybe that they're skating that way. And look at this one guy who's exposing his leg, which is something that females do, you know.
Mhm.
And look at the guy in the middle who's wearing a pink zoot suit, and he's wearing a burqa, kind of. And and all of this stuff is outrageously, incredibly expensive. I mean, we're talking thousands of dollars for some of these unwearable duds. And where would any self-respecting male wear shit like this? I mean, it would be embarrassing, unless you're a soy boy, unless you're a, a butter boy, unless you're, quite frankly, they look like, they dress like, and give a bad name. I mean, we both have homosexual friends. That's
Yeah, of
okay. I
course.
think it's
Yeah.
psychological aberration. That's okay. I mean, look, when I had horses, and I had lots of horses, I actually noticed, and I wasn't the only one, that some of the male horses, well, one in particular I remember very well, uh, were actually gay. I mean,
Hmm.
it was pretty obvious the horse was had chromosomes or genes. That,
Really, that's interesting.
there was no question about it. We all used to make jokes about. I forgot the name of the horse. So this happens, okay? But fact is that people that are overtly and project the fact that they have something genetically wrong with them, frankly, doesn't mean they're bad people necessarily at all. It's but then when you design clothes that are excessively expensive, who can afford these clothes, quite frankly? And
Yes.
where do you wear clothes like this? You
Well, and
know, it,
that first one especially, they're so absurd. This is you get down to this. This is the second big trend, I guess. It doesn't seem as crazy as the top one.
well, this is mostly leather pants here.
Mm. So they're showcasing. I see. Okay.
Yeah, and okay, if you're a rock star, you're a performer, okay, yeah, I can see the point of leather pants, but leather pants have gotta be really uncomfortable. I mean, hot.
You don't know for sure, Doug. You've never worn any.
I'm speculating, I'm guessing,
Okay.
but I've had leather jackets
Yep.
and, so this one isn't so bad.
Hmm.
But, well, here's a point that's worth observing. We've got one black guy, we got 3 Oriental guys, and, yeah, you know,
Tough to say.
yeah, tough to say, but they all
Look
look
why.
like they're they're all gay. I mean,
Yeah.
so what is this doing in a business magazine, and who actually buys these clothes? And I I'm
Well,
rather
I mean, gay men can
well,
be in business though, Doug. That wouldn't keep it out of the style section of the Wall Street Journal. It doesn't make it kind of makes sense for. But do they have any things they think are geared toward the Wall Street crowd in here among these 6 trends?
no, I can't see anything that would
So not
pass
this.
as business wear, quite frankly.
How
You
about
can't
this?
you can't yeah, look at well, the one on the right is
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah, that's
yeah,
okay.
it's kind of passable. But the first 4 guys here, if you showed up like that, I think the first guy, wait a minute, he's wearing his jacket, but he doesn't even have a T-shirt under it. Am I right?
Yeah, it
Or
doesn't look like it. Yeah.
doesn't look like it. So, you can't show up at an office like that and, I anyway,
It's
this is just
hard to even comment on this. It's actually fashion's always
it
been super out
kind
there,
of a
absurd.
much, much larger overall trend. And the black guy in the middle, kind of a strange hat is he wearing?
Hmm.
I mean,
It's interesting.
these people are all saying, look at me, you know. But that's strange because there's something wrong with all these guys.
Hmm. Well, yeah. I mean, there's certainly I'm more of a understated is like my preferred fashion style, but obviously that does not work for any of these folks. And what do we have
Oh,
here? The purple.
no, wait a minute. The the fourth guy here, that he looks like he may be a female. The one you just had there that was dressed in the
Oh, okay.
lavender.
Yes. Well, I
And
think
the hairstyle, the poutiness, uh, passes a female. I don't know.
they may be non-binary, Doug. You know
That
how that
could be.
goes.
But where would anybody wear this kind of crap? I mean, really be kind of you'd be
with the
embarrassed to step out.
purple leather gloves. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. But this but it amazes me that these outfits like Givenchy and Ralph Lauren, I don't know who the hell they are. How are they able to sell enough of this Fendi? Uh, how are they able to sell Armani? How are they able to sell enough of this stuff to make it worthwhile doing? Who
Mm.
who buys it? And if they buy it, where do they wear it? I mean, where could you wear it? Except some kind of a
Well,
gay rave.
this guy here on the right, he's got kind of a a Sam Bankman fraud kind of look going on. So
Yeah, he does.
that's kind of very modern Ponzi scheme-ish.
Yeah, a little bit.
Well,
Uh,
especially you got the curly hair to go along with it too, actually. So
yeah, and he's wearing semi knee socks, which is kind of non-functional and odd. I mean, how do you keep them up halfway up your calf? You know, the- so it's all crazy. Anyway, further
is
comment on the ongoing collapse of Western civilization. And of
yeah,
course,
I'm yeah.
here, you know, the white male is a dead duck. You got 4 black guys, and most black guys, unless they're rock stars or rappers or something like that, they don't have the money to buy this kind of shit. And, you know, I would think of if they wore this kind of stuff in the ghetto, their buds or people that saw them would just beat the shit out of them for being, you know, too outre. But
No
why
doubt.
is there only one white man among 4 black men? Because still, even though the country is changing, blacks are still only like 12% of the US population. So what are they trying to tell us here?
trying to make up for years and years of white supremacy and that kind of thing, I guess.
Of course, I
No
hear
doubt.
white supremacy is getting worse, not better.
Especially the militant parts. Often
And
DHS says
we were just talking about, how white T-shirts are retro rocking a little bit and coming back. Look at this guy on the right. He's wearing a wife beater T-shirt.
it's
I
like a
mean,
pillowcase. It's like a pillowcase though, Doug. See how
God,
it's like it's like quilted kind of and it's very boxy.
oh, that's the guy on the left. Oh yeah, that's kind of crazy
Yeah.
with that wild hat. I'm talking about the guy on the right
Wife
wearing
beater
the
guy. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So this is a clothing item that you go down to Walmart and you expect to pick up for about $2. I don't know. They're very cheap, I guess. And I'm sure Fendi or Dior or whoever it is, Prada. Oh, Prada's they're probably selling that for like $200 or something like that. Who's buying it? I mean,
Well, I'll tell you, Doug, there's one here I like. I do like this one. I think this is pretty good. What this
actually,
guy's wearing.
that's pretty normal. What's it
And
doing there?
my guess is this is Brunello Cucinelli, which is a brand I do like. I
Hmm,
can't imagine they'd have this or
no.
that or that. So
Well, interestingly, the guy that's wearing the one that you point out is actually a normal looking male.
I
I
know
mean,
he's like an Easter egg in this fashion hunt.
it's amazing. Yeah, the other guys are just creepy, but he looks like he could go some. Yeah. Anyway, this is this
It's
is a
pretty
crazy
shocking,
trend.
Doug. Yeah, it's pretty shocking that it's gone this direction. And it is a weird thing about it. I mean, maybe it just goes along with the feminization of the culture, where, masculinity is discouraged and, feminine traits, which are fashion is fashion is has I know you've known this in your life. It's always been much more important to the women around you than it's been to the men, I'm sure, right?
Much more, much more. And this is part of the trend of they get you thinking one way, they get you talking another way. Now they got you looking another
Right.
way.
Right.
So anyway, it's a it's a degraded trend. Seems to be continuing and perhaps accelerating because it wasn't so long ago you wouldn't expect that kind of thing in the Wall Street Journal, which is a business paper anyway. But it's not what it
Yeah.
used to.
No,
Uh,
I still got to imagine though the typical Wall Street Journal reader. I mean, maybe there's some millennials and Zoomers that are in there that read it. I'd be surprised even if there's some that really like this kind of stuff that would see themselves wearing this stuff. And I think most of them are probably still the same people that you and I've known for decades, who are longtime subscribers. Who I'm surprised that Wall Street Journal wouldn't cater toward them a little bit. Provide some stuff that's probably targeted toward their ideal market, which is upmarket Wall Street types.
I know advertising dollars wasted. There's something strange going on here, and I don't know what it is.
Hmm.
Ongoing collapse of civilization. One more sign. But then going through the paper, the Wall Street Journal again on Saturday, they had an article talking about uh, the U.S. News and World Report college rankings. And that's been around for decades, where this news magazine, U.S. News, which I don't even know if it exists anymore in print,
Yeah, no.
uh, they
It was
rank.
it was one of the biggest weekly um, magazines, in the 90s. Though it was huge, very big, huge circulation.
Yeah, that's true. They competed with Time and Newsweek.
Yeah,
So anyway, they started ranking colleges, and it's not entirely clear how the colleges are ranked. It's like they ask students and teachers and deans at other colleges, "Who do you think is a good college out there?" And then they say this and that, and then they come up with, who has the most high SAT students and so forth. So they come up with these rankings. But well, first, my feeling is that college in today's world, for many reasons, is a misallocation of time and money. There was a time, probably up until the 60s, when going to college could be argued unless you wanted to get a doctoring or a lawyering or an engineering degree. Well, for those things, it's good to have the formal discipline of a college. And for engineering and science, you need lab work, which you probably can't do at home. Okay, I think college made a lot of sense. And if you wanted to be a specialist in some field and want to be surrounded by other specialists who could talk about your specialty, great, makes a lot of sense. But then, starting after World War II, really, with the GI Bill, and now almost everybody goes to college. Uh,
Right.
everybody, other than everybody should go to college to start with, which is a mistake. But a very, very high proportion of the population goes to college these days. And that's one thing. Something that everybody has oftentimes isn't worth having. Something that everybody
Yeah.
thinks isn't
Yeah.
worth thinking.
So it's as you were just talking about the GI Bill, it just made me think it's like they might have considered the democratization of education, but it's really like it's turning education into the Model T, making cars accessible to all, makes education now acceptable or to all, accessible to all, but also then it becomes sort of a baseline is that this is what everyone should do. And that's what the problem that's so deeply corrupting about it. I mean, they don't even talk to kids now. They did so a little bit when I was graduating from high school in the early 90s, but they do not talk about other outcomes to most students other than going to college. There is only one path. It's the university path.
That's right. You should march off in lockstep. And the fact of the matter is, the education system has been totally captured by collectivists and statists and Marxists, woke types. Uh, when I was a trustee at Washington College, which is the 10th oldest college or university in the country, it was highly woke back then. And the trustees were worthless. They had no idea. They weren't there. They were products of this thought process. All the teachers and the deans, it was a corrupting influence. And so I quit after serving for a while, basically to educate myself at how bad the situation was. And that was in the 90s.
Mm.
So anyway, US News and World Report, this article had to do with the fact that a lot of colleges and universities and their medical schools, especially, which they zeroed in on, don't want to be rated or ranked. And I can see why, because they're soliciting uh, students and teachers and deans, not based upon their excellence in the field, but upon their race or or ESG or DIE. So the whole system is becoming degraded. And apparently, you know, they're passing out grades to everybody, high grades, because especially people of color and whatnot, because if you give them a low grade, that may prove that you're racist. And
Mm.
people will bring that up, like, what are you giving a low grades to the black kid for? You
Right.
know,
And you could still be a black professor giving it to low grade to black people, and that can still be considered white supremacy in today's day and age, as we saw recently with the cops, and who killed five black cops killed somebody. I think it was in Memphis, and
yeah,
they are accused of white supremacy.
I
So
know.
it's all confused.
Now we live in a bizarro world today. So kind of a parting
Hmm.
mention to our listeners is if you have a kid or a grandkid that's in high school and is wondering what to do, what college to go to is really always wondering about. Uh, Sit down and talk to him about what he wants to be when he grows up, what he wants to do with those 4 years, what he wants to do with all that money he's going to spend. But it's not even the pissing away the money, and in many people's cases, taking on really burdensome debt that's tied them for many years. It's wasting that time. Worse than wasting the time. I can see wasting the time. drinking beer, chasing girls. Okay, waste of time, but fun waste of time.
Yeah.
All right. The problem is they're sitting in classrooms being indoctrinated from people in authority that they naturally assume are telling you the truth, telling you the right thing, interpreting reality for you. So it's worse than a waste of time and money. So
Yes.
you've got to do something and direct your kids. Look, tell your kid who's in high school, hey, I'm going to spend, or you're going to spend, 50,000, 100,000, 200, $400,000. I don't know what the numbers are. They can be as crazy as you want to get. If that money and that time is sitting here, what do you really want to do at that time? What do you really want to learn? Where do you want to go? You know, uh,
Yep.
so nobody
'Cause
asks
you
that.
well, and I think the thing is everyone gets gone with the assumption that college is, it might not be optimal, but and the specific college choice might not be optimal, and what they study there might not be optimal, but it isn't. That's all flavors of the same. That like whether like it's still better to go, and I think that people have. I hope people at this point are starting to recognize that it's actually dangerous to hand your kids over to universities, not just universities, even to public schools at any level. You're handing them over for indoctrination that is happening on a crazy scale. I mean, there's this. I was just looking up this report I remember seeing in the Wall Street Journal a couple of weeks ago about Stanford University and talking about how they have more administrative staff than they do students at Stanford. And the way that breaks down is they have 15,750 administrators, 2,288 faculty members, and about 17,000 students. What are all these
It's,
administrators doing?
it's completely insane because if you look at the origins of Western education with Plato and Socrates and Aristotle, what constituted education then? It was basically walking around with your teacher and, 10 or 15 students and having a conversation and discussing and observing the world. That's what an education was. And it's nothing like that now. Now it's all about filling out forms and getting papers. And and when you get out of college, what's it qualify you for? Getting a job that some big corporation gives you. Because an entrepreneurial business really doesn't give a damn what college you went to. An entrepreneur is interested in what you know and what you can do.
Yep.
Okay, you need a job, you'll be hired by that. But you work for a big corporation, they're interested in credentials because you're just one of thousands out there. So of course they got to look at the credentials. So
Right.
it's the
You
whole
know, I
thing is
think
down.
I think one of the like foundational problems that is that I'm talking to my son about this a lot, and his friends and others that are not that much older than him about just kind of understanding how they're making their decisions about stuff and how they're thinking about it. And one of the things you see is that for a lot of these kids, their entire life has they've been presented with choices because their life is so managed by everything. Like kids are less free today than they've ever been in America. I mean, they're always monitored, by parents or others, people, responsible adults, the chauffeured from place to place and structured play only. And so their parents give them choices, would you like to do this or that? And the kids then are thus trained only to work within a subset of choices presented to them. They really haven't, it's like they only know multiple choice. They do not know how to do an essay. They do not know how to come out of their own and produce something. And when you're institutionalized, as people are, when they're in public education, you're, with people in your own age group, where someone standing and telling you, certain things and all, supposedly teaching you, giving you information all day, and that sort of one-way stream, you just get used to with a life that's presented to you. And you'd see, I think you even give up. I guess my big point with it is that nothing great happens by the choices that someone else gives you. Like they'll always be not ideal for you. You'll never really be happy with the few choices that others are willing to offer you. You have to go create your own. And these universities do not set you up for that.
Well, it's compounded by the fact that everybody, I guess, without exception, has a small electronic device
Yeah.
where they read things that are pushed to them, and they're short snippets that are irrelevant to anything. I was
Mm.
on a Zoom call the other day, and one of the guys on it is he's a professional artist, but also he's a very crafts oriented guy. He knows how to make stuff. He knows how to build stuff. I mean, that's what he does. Other than do art, he can build all kinds of stuff. And he lives in Florida. And somehow or other, he was telling us how he got together with a bunch of teenage boys, and they were out doing something in a field, fixing a fence or something like that. And none of these kids that he was put into contact with knew how to do anything when it came to physical work, even like, logically, how does a fence work? I mean, how does it, how do you stabilize this, and line
Yeah.
things up? Didn't have a clue. In other words, these were normal middle class white kids. Hard to draw them away from their tiny electronic devices, of course, but in their own way, they're just as bad or worse as ghetto kids that when you ask them, well, where's milk come from? And they tell you from a carton. Like it's a stupid question you're asking them, you know.
Yeah. That's true. Why do you think that fundamental disconnect has happened? Do you think it's just the internet and electronics that cause it, or is it something else?
Well, it seems like people are splitting into two groups. I mean, the one group take advantage of the electronic
Yep.
world and the fact that all the knowledge of the world is at your fingertips now, which it never used to be.
Yep.
And the other half, well, not the other half, probably the other 90%, just use it for distraction and idle entertainment and communication of stupid thoughts with other kids also have stupid thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
So, so yeah, I guess it's it's actually a thing. Well, we're
well, I
not
think
going to know how it turns out for some time yet.
uh, I'm not, I'm not optimistic though. I think fundamentally, if you know, but I think the way you break it down into like 10 and 90 is about the same for everything else. There's most people consume more than they produce. And so if you think about your electronic activity, are you using it to consume stuff or are you using it to produce stuff? And if you're using it to consume, you're basically entertaining yourself. That's what it is. And you might as well be eating donuts. I mean, if you think about it like that, what you're doing to yourself is of equivalent value or damage, I should say.
I'm increasingly coming to the opinion that since the people in the productive 10 or 20% are going to be are creating artificial intelligence and robots and all the rest of this type of thing, then there will be developed haptic suits where most people can climb into their haptic suits and live in an artificial video world where they can feel and think it's all real and live in their little cubicles and collect their guaranteed monthly income. I mean,
Mhm.
this can really become uh, a strange sci-fi world in the next generation. It's awesome.
I think so. I think so. I have to do real quick before we wrap up, Doug. 'Cause you're just we're talking about criticizing consumption of stuff on the internet and how you end up just being a consumer with it and how it's all mostly news that's unrelated to other things and not really of much value to you. Well, this is one thing I really like about what we've done with the file. That place is like a walled garden where we talk about solutions. There's a lot of showing and telling. People that have a farm or a homestead that are doing that, they share what they're doing with it. People that are doing things, to make better financial decisions to protect and grow their capital. People are growing their businesses there. They're sharing that information there, and it's a much more positive. It's actually it's a strange place in that it's positive compared to everywhere else online where it's basically just a shitstorm of bad news after bad news.
That's a very good point. And it's been said, and I think it's true, that you're the average of the five people that you associate with most closely. And if you're just out there in today's world, 5 people that you closely associate with are happenstance, people you
Yep.
meet at work or something like that, and they don't have any particular distinguishing that makes them better, smarter, richer than anybody else. So you want to put yourself in a position where you're not the smartest guy in the group, where actually, if you can manage it, you're the dumbest guy in the group and use the others to help elevate you.
Yep.
That's the way I
Exactly.
think it should work.
I totally agree. So if you're interested in that, people, there's a link in the description for this. You can check out what the file is all about, and maybe you'll join us there. And we have over 600 members at this point, people from all over the world, and lots of people are meeting up offline, which is one of the coolest things, actually. So, all right. Well, Doug, we'll leave it there for today, and I guess we'll be back tomorrow to talk about some gold.
Yeah, that's a topical subject.
I think
Great.
now's the time.
Yeah,
Thanks,
it
Doug.
is.